Okay, 2 polygons. Are congruent. If their corresponding parts are congruent. Okay, and here's what that means. If you're given the congruent statement, that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. If you're told that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF, then the following is true. Angle A would be congruent to angle D. Angle B would be congruent to angle E. And angle C would be congruent to which angle? Angle F, good. Do you see where the A is located in the description on the left? It's the first letter in the description. So that means that that angle is congruent to angle D, which is the first description, the first letter in that description. Alright? The B is congruent to the E because they are both the second letters in their respective descriptions. And angle C is congruent to angle F because they are both in the third position of their descriptions. If that is all true, then their sides, corresponding sides, are congruent. So side AB would be congruent to which side? DE, good. And side BC would be congruent to EF. And side AC would be congruent to DF. That's what corresponding parts are congruent means in this definition up here. Now, if you had to draw a diagram of that, you would draw two triangles. And you label the one on the left ABC, the one on the right DEF, and here's how you can show those same facts in a diagram. If angle A is congruent to angle D, then each of those angles would get one little arc mark. And if angle B is congruent to angle E, then we're going to go with two little arc marks in each of those angles. And then C congruent to F, you're going to go with 3 arc marks in C and then 3 in F. When you're labeling the congruent sides, side AB is congruent to side DE. Well, AB you could put 1 tick mark and DE would get 1 tick mark. And if BC is congruent to EF, BC would get 2 tick marks, and EF would get 2 tick marks. And AC congruent to DF, we're going to go 3 tick marks on AC, so on DF you get 3 tick marks. Alright, so what you got there was a congruence statement, then a description of what's true based on that congruence statement, and then from the congruence statement and the description you can draw a diagram. Okay? And what you need to be able to do is either do this in the order that we just did it, or if you were given the diagram first, be able to write the congruence statement. Okay? That makes sense? Alright. So look at page 256, example 2. Triangle ABC. Is congruent to triangle DFE. You're asked to find the values of X and Y. So here are your triangles. This is triangle ABC. You're given that side AB is 32.1, side BC is 38.4, AC is 54, angle B is 99, A is 45, and C is 36. In your second triangle, DFE, angle F is 8y minus 5. Side FE is 2y plus x. And that's the end of your given information. So in this case, if you look at this congruent statement, this congruent statement says that angle B is congruent to angle F. Angle B is 99 degrees and angle F is 8y minus 5 degrees. So you can set your 8y minus 5 equal to 99 so that you can solve for y. So you'd add 5 to each side. Your 8y would equal 104. And then if you divide each side by 8, your y would equal 13. Then you're told in your congruent statement that this side right here, FE, with the 2y plus x length. FE, that's your second and third letter in the description. Your side FE is going to be congruent to side BC. And side BC in this top triangle is the 38.4. So you can write another equation to solve for x. Alright, your 2y plus x is going to be equal to 38.4. But you already know what y equals. So you can do 2 times 13 plus x is equal to 38.4. So 26 plus x equals 38.4. and you can subtract 26 from each side. So your x equals 12.4. Any questions on that problem? Hello? Look, both of these triangles were basically facing the same direction with the vertices in the same order. But please make sure that you refer to the congruent statement before you start assuming which sides are congruent. Okay? What will happen is the triangles are going to start to get rotated, flipped, turned on their sides, and you may glance at the two triangles and think that these two sides are congruent to each other, but then when you read the congruent statement, that's not the case. Alright? And it happens a lot each year, and people start writing equations that just aren't true. So you always want to refer to the congruent statement first before you start writing your equation. And mark up your paper if you've got, highlighters and you're using them. Mark which angles are congruent in one color. Mark which sides are congruent in another color. And it'll prevent you from making mistakes when you're solving these problems for the side lengths and angle measures. So let's look at that next problem on the bottom of that page, the guided practice there. You got another two triangle problem, and they're just connected to each other. R, S, T, and V. This angle up here, RSV, is 90 degrees. I didn't draw that very good. Side RS is 2y minus 1. S to T is 24.5. Angle T is x degrees. VT is 24. Angle SVR is 78. And you're told that triangle RSV is congruent to triangle TVS. And you've got to find x and y. Or the values of x and y. So let's start with the x. Alright? The x degrees represents angle T. And angle T is first in its respective description. So angle T is going to be congruent to angle R, which is first in its description. So now in this triangle on the left, triangle RSV, angle R is the third angle in this right triangle. And we said that in a right triangle, the two acute angles sum 90 degrees. So angle R is going to be equal to 90 minus the 78, which is 12 degrees. And if angle R is 12 degrees, then the value of x is equal to 12. This second variable, the y value, it represents side RS, which is right here. R and S are the first two letters in this congruent statement. So side RS is congruent to side TV, the first two letters in that description. So side TV is right down here. So when you solve for y, it's going to be 2y minus 1 is equal to 24. So you can add 1 to each side. And your 2y equals 25. And you can divide by 2. And y equals 12.5. Alright, so please refer to the congruent statements and then mark up your drawing so that you can label corresponding parts so that you can write the correct equation. Take a look at page 257, please. This third angles theorem is pretty important, and it says that if two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of a second triangle, if two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of a second triangle, then the third angles are congruent. And hopefully that just makes sense. Alright, if you've got a triangle here on the left and a triangle on the right, we'll use some simpler numbers. If you've got a 50-degree angle and a 60-degree angle, and in the triangle on the right you have a 60-degree and a 50-degree, you've got two angles of one triangle on the left congruent to two angles of another triangle on the right. Well, don't the angles in both triangles have to sum 180? Alright, so in the triangle on the left you got a 60 and a 50 is 110. If you subtract that from 180, you're left with 70. Well, if these two angles in the triangle on the left sum 110 and the two angles in the triangle on the right sum 110, then the third angle in each triangle has to be the same. Okay? Any questions on that? Alright, your practice for today